So I want to share an illustrative example of how I've used QCA in a multi-year study of Teach for America alumni's career paths. I've conducted this study over the last few years with my colleague at UC Berkeley, Professor Janelle Scott, and we were interested in studying Teach for America because when TFA originally began, it was framed as, well, raise your hand if you've heard of Teach for America. So everybody, okay. So you know how it was originally framed, as an alternative teacher preparation and placement program. Okay. And today, the discourse around TFA is a very different one. Today, TFA self-describes its mission as an organization that aims to prepare educational and social policy leaders. So it sees itself now more as producing alternative teachers and placing them in hard-to-staff settings. Now they're really aiming to produce leaders, excuse me. And we know from the demographic profile of the Teach for America Corps over the last 25 years that it's hovered around, roughly around 14% African American, 11% Latino, and about a quarter of its core has been includes Corps members who were the first in their family to attend college. That's their proxy for low socioeconomic background. Right? So this is a fairly elite network of actors that's growing quite a bit in public education right now. So why were we interested in studying this? Well, we see TFA as a case of something larger. We see it as an organization that's situated with within a broader political and ideological movement in education. And it's part of right now they're in conversation with others about the project to redefine and redress educational equity. And we've observed that the recruits oftentimes, through our study, we've observed that the recruits come to promote a certain type of policy and a certain type of reform. And we describe these policies as reforms as incentivist policies or market-oriented policies that retain certain themes from the corporate sector. But how do so many of them come to support this particular sort of brand of policy and this brand of reform? Well, we've used QCA to understand what conditions in Corps members' experiences in TFA lead them to support these types of policies as opposed to other public interest-minded, more communitarian focused policies. So I want to give you a little bit of background just so you see where we're going with this and you see how we use the tool to understand what led to this outcome. So we frame this study with theoretical concepts that come out of the political science tradition, and namely the concept of policy entrepreneurs, which comes from Mintrom's work. And Mintrom teaches us that policy entrepreneurs are individuals who take up a cause and they make it part of their political agenda, or they attach it to a pre-existing political agenda. And policy entrepreneurs, Mintrom reminds us, promote market-oriented policies as opposed to public interest policies that are intended to invest in the public bureaucratic system. Okay, so these include charter schools, voucher plans, high-stakes testing, merit pay, the federal turnaround program, for example. And this concept of policy entrepreneurs is used to explain how policies are initiated, how they're considered, and then how they're actually adopted. And he argues that policy entrepreneurs become instrumental in promoting these types of policies that TFA alumni tend to be supporting in our study. More incentivist policies rather than the more public interest minded ones that I was referring to. So if you're looking in the marketplace, in the corporate sector, policy entrepreneurs include individuals that are acting on the strength of their ideas, but not necessarily the strength of the evidence. Right? So Mintrom describes policy entrepreneurs as using rhetoric to bring in support for their ideas, not necessarily evidence. Okay. And then here he said they focus on innovation as the end goal, right? Or changing traditional routines. Okay. Now in the policy-making world, this looks a little different though. Here policy entrepreneurs will dramatize certain issues in order to galvanize public opinion around them. They'll rely on well-developed networks, both social and professional networks of actors to help promote different policies. And they'll frame innovation, like I said, as the solution and focus on change. You'll hear lots of rhetoric around change and innovation. And in this literature, the argument is that by bringing a problem to public prominence and developing and advocating an incentivist policy of innovation, an individual then becomes a policy entrepreneur. So we asked, how do these TFA alumni become policy entrepreneurs?